After cutting nearly $12 million over the past 3 years from their budget, the Duluth School Board held a special meeting to vote on an operating referendum. In a unanimous vote tonight, the school board approved putting the referendum on the ballot for voters in November. Northern News Now's Leslie Krebs attended the meeting and shares why district leaders say this referendum is crucial. Leslie?
Yeah, Laura, after a unanimous 7-0 vote, the Duluth school approved an operating referendum that'll be placed on the November ballot for Duluth taxpayers to vote on. Now, this comes after 2 previous referendums failed in 2023 and 2024. But Superintendent John Magus remains hopeful after the recent survey that was sent out to Duluth residents this summer about supporting a referendum.
And that survey showed that there was an appetite for supporting the schools.
Superintendent John Magus said over 2,000 people took part in a survey in June, and 63% of Duluth residents said they would support a referendum. Voters will have 2 questions asking if they support an increase in their property taxes to support the Duluth school district.
The first question asked for $8, which basically means that we can stop making so many deep cuts. And the second question is contingent, and that's for $7, and basically that would mean that we could restore some of the essential staff and programming.
Meaning the estimated tax impact for the owner of a $300,000 house, let's say, would be an increase of $8 per month. Question 2 will only take effect, though, if voters approve question 1. This third attempt to secure financial support from voters comes after the district has had to cut about $12 million. Board member Kelly Durek-Eater explains how further cuts will negatively impact the district.
That could be closing of schools, that could be adjustments of boundaries. That's going to look at significantly scaling back what activities and athletics our kids have access to.
Superintendent Magus says they'll have to cut an additional $14 million in 2027 and 2028 if a referendum doesn't pass. Magus says it's not just buildings and programs, but roughly 50 staff positions that would also be cut.
It's about really thinking about what are the resources we need for our kids for the programming they deserve, and what staff do we need to make sure that we can provide high-quality education for our students.
Now, once again, Duluth residents will have a referendum this November to vote on. District leaders say if this referendum passes, an additional $5 million will still need to be cut from the next school year to balance the budget. Live in studio, Leslie Krebs, Northern News Now.